What's up, Nashville? This is Bo Beach with the Free Speech Podcast presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. As always, we are going to discuss the top stories of the week in commercial real estate, business, politics, and sports. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the stories we're going to cover today, and then we'll get into it. Number one, I want to talk you through what a 1 percentage point drop in interest rates would mean for your mortgage payment, right? So we're in a market where the values of commercial real estate is very up, residential real estate is very up. You've got people sitting out this market thinking that monthly payments are somehow going to get back to where they started. And I'm going to walk you through why that is unlikely and why sitting out our current market is probably a mistake. We'll start there. Next, I'm going to bring you an interesting development in Wedgwood, Houston, WeHo, that's got the look of a greenhouse. I'll explain that to you. Next, let's talk about the transit plan, right? So as we vote for president this November, residents of Davidson County are also going to be voting for a 3.1 initial cost billion transit plan, getting a lot of pushback from folks that say there's nothing in there for us. We're spending $3.1 billion and our roads aren't going to be any less congested. What are you doing? Well, the mayor, Freddie O'Connell, has responded to some of that feedback, and I'm going to give you his answers. Next, we're going to talk through a landlord software provider called RealPage is being sued by the United States Justice Department, claiming they are operating an algorithmic pricing scheme. So you've got the Justice Department coming after landlords. I'm going to tell you that story. Next, a local developer converts Music Row homes into bars and a wellness retreat. So this is a very interesting use of property in Music Row. You know, most of the cottages that Music Row is known for are being bulldozed and replaced by much larger modern structures. That's not the case here. I mean, there's enough land here to do something like that, but instead, this very qualified, experienced developer is taking a different approach, and I think that's worth discussing. Next, we're going to talk through another female country star partners with a downtown Nashville bar. Unless you've been living under a rock, it has become big business to attach the name of a country music star to a bar in Nashville. We're going to tell you who the newest country music star is and who they're partnering with. And then we'll finish with a little kind of freestyle discussion about politics. You know, the state of politics in this country are just gross and exhausting and just really shocking and hard to wrap my mind around. And one of the topics I've been thinking about is if you had to describe the Democrat Party in one sentence, the modern Democrat Party, not JFK's Democrat Party, the modern Democrat Party of today, how would you describe them? And then let's do the alternate for the modern Republican Party. I'm going to give you my answers to those two questions. Love to hear some feedback on how you are kind of summarizing what these parties stand for today, because they've changed so substantially from kind of what they stood for historically. The Democrat Party especially is a whole different organization with a different plan for the future, a different perspective on the country. And I want to talk through that, present you at least my thoughts on how I particularly summarize the both parties. So let's get into it. Every percentage point drop in interest rates can reduce a buyer's monthly mortgage payment by about 10%, right? So you know what your monthly mortgage payment is. We're not talking about escrows for real estate taxes, for insurance, if you're someone that does that. We're talking about the principal and interest payment. If interest rates were to go down 1% below what you're currently paying, your monthly payment would change by about 10%, right? For example, if rates drop by 50 basis points, which means 0.5%, a $4,000 monthly mortgage payment could decrease to about $3,800, right? So a half of a percentage point in interest rate is going to change a $4,000 payment to a $3,800 payment. However, despite recent increases in mortgage rates by 4 to 5%, home prices have remained relatively stable. To bring a $4,000 payment back to $2,400, as it once was, would require a series of significant rate cuts, like at the same scale when they raised them, right? We'd have to reverse all of the interest rate increases. How likely is that to happen without a terrible recession? I think that it's very unlikely to happen. You would need a severe downturn to trigger forced sellers, right? Whereby the prices these properties would be sold at would be going down, right? The prices would drop because these sellers were forced. They didn't have any other option. Plus, in addition to that, you would need low enough rates to recalibrate housing affordability. Trying to formulate a path toward affordability, and I don't see it in the near future, right? So if you're expecting that house that once had a $2,400 mortgage payment to somehow become a $2,400 mortgage payment again in the future, when it is a $4,000 mortgage payment today, if you're waiting for that same house to be available at a $2,400 payment, you are going to be waiting forever. I don't think it's going to happen because you would need a severe economic downturn called a recession, plus you would need interest rates to go back to where they were before we had the inflation crisis of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I just don't see that happening. I think it is most likely that our home prices are here to stay. The only way these home prices are going down that much is if something terrible happened to our economy. And no one wants that, because as soon as you get into a place where the economy is doing terrible, even if that mortgage payment goes down to $2,400 a month, you probably are not going to be in a position to actually buy that home anymore. Your income will be affected. The cash you have available for the purchase will be affected. You know, it's a terrible thing. So if we really get into a recessionary period, you know, those people that are price sensitive, right? They're monthly cost sensitive. They aren't going to be in a position to pick up these houses. You know, the only ones going to be in a position to pick up these houses in a severe recession are going to be those cash buyers, right? So the price sensitive folks are not going to have a very good chance at getting these properties at a much lower monthly mortgage payment if a severe recession is necessary to accomplish it. Because even if those prices go down, you're not likely going to be in a position to actually borrow that money to purchase the property. You know, as a commercial real estate broker, you know, it strikes me that people don't fully understand how access to financing affects our markets, right? So the last 18 months, we've been in a high interest rate environment, and there are buyers out there that would pay that higher interest rate to acquire property. Except even if they're willing to pay that higher interest rate, most banks are not lending. So access to financing is extremely important to the real estate market. Even if you're willing to pay the higher interest rate, that doesn't mean a bank is willing to loan you the money. And a lot of people have learned that lesson over the last 18 months. So the last thought on this mortgage topic, I would say the major benefit really to lowering interest rates, which we expect to see in September, is not necessarily the lower costs that result. In my opinion, I think it's going to be more psychological in nature. We've been through a period of economic decline. And as soon as we can start showing signs that that is over, right? Psychologically, a small interest rate cut, which I don't think we're going to get a big one. I think it's going to be real small. But even a small one is going to really benefit us from a psychological perspective. At least we are presenting a economy that is improving or will soon be improving. An economy that's going to have much more transactions because interest rates are going down and hopefully banks start lending again. So if you're waiting for interest rates to drop, you're sitting out our current marketplace. I do not think that is going to be a fruitful endeavor for you. I don't think prices are going to adjust very much at all. And for a 0.5 percentage point change in interest rate, which we're not going to get in September, it won't be that big. That really just changes a monthly mortgage payment from $4,000 to $3,800. That's not that material. So if you're one of these people that's on the sideline waiting for a good buying opportunity, I don't think there's any reason to keep sitting this out. Try to figure out how you can acquire a property now. If interest rates go down in the future, buy enough to justify, refinance out, get yourself a new loan, get off the sidelines. I don't think there's any reason to think that you are going to benefit from sitting out our market. Next, let's move on. A local developer plans greenhouse retail development in Wedgwood, Houston. Local developer David Creed, remember that name because David is in 2 of our stories today, revealed plans for a 25,000 square foot retail development in the hot neighborhood of WeHo. Quote, our base concept for design is molded after a mid-century warehouse with a greenhouse on top. What? What is a mid-century warehouse? And who thought to put a greenhouse on top? This is very artistic and creative. And a lot of times developers developers on average are kind of wild. They're not the normal person. It's a very difficult business to be in. It's a grind. It's a hustle. Almost all developers are cut from a little bit different cloth. And I think that's probably true here, talking about mid-century warehouses with greenhouses on top. This same developer did the renovation of 2nd Avenue's Pilcher building, also the building home to Rudy's Jazz Room in the Gulch, and the Oak Barrel building in Berry Hill. Creed does not yet own the site. The 0.84 acre property, which currently holds an industrial building, is in contract waiting for approvals before closing. So developers do not want to close on the purchase of a piece of land for development until they know that they can proceed with the development that they have in mind, right? And a lot of times, until they really get approval, that municipal approval, their lender is unwilling to close the transaction. So developers are really at the mercy of their lender in many, many situations. So that's why you see developers getting these parcels in contract with a long due diligence period so they can design the project, go seek the necessary approvals, and then ultimately get financing for the project so they can close the deal. All right, let's keep moving. The transit plan Q&A with the mayor. What's the biggest thing you want a voter to take away from the transit plan? And I'm going to cut out all of the fluff and talking points and just kind of get to the point. Even if you are very committed to your current commute pattern and you drive by yourself, almost everywhere you go, you're going to get more green lights out of this program, right? So what's happening is people are reviewing this $3.1 billion transit plan. That's only up front. And I think it was over a 15-year horizon. It goes to $6.9 billion. And everybody's looking at it saying, how is increased bus service, transit developments, right? So these bus stops, you're going to supposedly build affordable housing around these bus stops, and adding sidewalks going to improve the congestion in Nashville, which is everyone's major gripe. It is too hard to get from point A to point B during rush hour in Nashville. That's what we want fixed. And instead of really making that the priority and spending $3.1 billion of taxpayer money, what they've done is committed themselves to pet projects that, welfare, transportation welfare projects that really aren't going to solve any of the congestion issues. But what they're trying to argue now, these are politicians, remember, they have their talking points. They're trying to get this transit plan over the finish line, right? And accordingly, they're going to say whatever they need to say to get it over the finish line. They're now making the argument that if you give us $3.1 billion, the traffic lights will work better. That's the new argument they're making. $3.1 billion. And I will tell you, when all the information I've reviewed on this topic, right, I have not seen any breakout of this is what we want to spend on buses, this is what we want to spend on sidewalks, this is what we want to spend on traffic lights, this is what we want to spend on transit-oriented development sites. They haven't broken it out because people would see, oh, a tiny portion is going to traffic lights, and the other $2.5 billion is going to your pet welfare projects, right? So I think the transit plan is a terrible idea. I really do. I don't think it solves the problems that the average Nashvilleian wants solved. Next question. What do you tell people who look at some of the basics of the plan and see only the bus improvements and think it won't help? Yeah, no kidding. We do expect that almost everyone in the city is going to get to reclaim more time if this gets approved, because there will simply be smarter traffic flow around the entire city that is moving people through safer corridors and intersections. So $3.1 billion, hey car drivers, we're going to give you something too if you vote for this. We're going to give you better traffic lights. And they're selling it hard. Better traffic lights. Sounds ridiculous to me. Can you delve into signaling in particular, since so many people who are car dependent want to know how that will work for them? The idea is traffic management centers. Because of understanding traffic patterns, with each one that comes online, it may be the entirety of Broadway, for instance, where a whole network of lights stays green after a special event to help traffic flow. It will ultimately literally mean a larger number of Nashvilleians have more green lights than red lights as they're traveling around the city. The program lets us, over the period that it's in effect, modernize 2/3 of our signalized intersections. So they're selling this hard, right? Give us $3.1 billion for our pet welfare projects, and I'm going to give you more green lights. I think it just sounds unbelievable. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, and I would never pay $3.1 billion for more green lights, or this fantasy of more green lights. What's your argument for the plan when some might say they don't want to or can't afford to pay for it right now? Majority of the program's local revenues are actually going to come from out-of-county residents. This actually lets us capture the success of Nashville's destination economy, right? So the idea is they're going to increase the Davidson County sales tax by 0.5%, right? So now they're making the argument that much of the sales tax paid in Davidson County comes from tourists, so this is actually going to be paid by tourism. I'd love to see what that means. I'd love to see what amount of sales tax collected in Davidson County comes from residents and what amount comes from non-residents. Because I don't believe politicians. I don't believe politicians from either side. They're just too slippery. Show me the numbers. We're big boys and girls. We can think for ourselves and come to our own conclusion. As people go to the polls this November, our hope and expectation is that we're trying to get them the green light for more green lights. So you see where this is going. All right, people are pushing back and saying, hey, that's way too much money for buses I'll never take. That's way too much money for transit-oriented developments that I'll never visit. That's way too much money for sidewalks I'll never walk on. What we really want to do is make rush hour less burdensome, more efficient. Focus only on that. And they're saying, nah, if you want more green lights, you need to give us the green light to spend $3.1 billion on some of the pet welfare projects that we have in mind. That's what will be voted on in November. It'll be real interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, they're certainly selling it like an astute politician would. I just wonder, does everyone want to pay more for every transaction they make in Davidson County in exchange for more buses and sidewalks and transit-oriented developments in this, at least this utopian dream of more green lights? About to find out. You know, the folks of Nashville have voted down transit referendums more than once in the past. It'll be real interesting to see how it plays out this year. Next, we're going to move on. Justice Department sues RealPage for algorithmic pricing scheme, right? So this is RealPage is a landlord software provider. The U.S. Justice Department and the Attorney General of 8 states have filed a civil antitrust lawsuit against RealPage, alleging the pricing algorithm the company uses for its commercial revenue management software violates antitrust laws and harms millions of renters. The Justice, by the way, one of those 8 states is Tennessee, which I was surprised to see. The Justice Department's complaint says RealPage's alleged conduct deprives renters of the benefits of competition on apartment leasing terms. Americans should not have to pay more in rent because a company has found a new way to scheme with other landlords to break the law, said your boy, A.G. Merrick Garland, maybe one of the more despicable swamp creatures in the modern day Democrat White House. We allege that RealPage's pricing algorithm enables landlords to share confidential, competitively sensitive information and align their rents. So the idea is all the users of this software that RealPage created, they're all landlords, and it gives them some type of tool to understand easily what other folks are charging for comparable units. So if if apartment complex B is charging $1,000 for their 2 bedrooms and you're only charging $875, the idea is now that you've learned that apartment B is charging $1,000, now you're raising yours to $1,000 too, because if they can get it, you can get it, and everybody's trying to profit maximize. And to do that using software somehow makes it illegal. RealPage's revenue management software is purposely built to be legally compliant, and we have a long history of working constructively with the DOJ to show that. We believe the claims brought by DOJ are devoid of merit and will do nothing to make housing more affordable. We intend to vigorously defend ourselves against these accusations. The Justice Department lawsuit says RealPage contracts with competing landlords who agree to share with the company non-public, competitively sensitive information about the rental rates and other lease terms to train and run RealPage's algorithmic pricing software. This software, according to the complaint, then generates recommendations for participating landlords based on their and their rivals' competitively sensitive information. So if you're a landlord and you've invested multi-million dollars into your project, your apartment complex, the old-fashioned way was you just do some research, figure out who you're competing with, and figure out what they're offering to renters, right? That's the old school way to do it. Now, if you use this software, it does that process for you. You don't have to put in any work. The algorithm and the data coming from other RealPage users spits it out without you having to do it the old school way, right? And that's what they're objecting to. They're saying, hey, you need to do this the old school way. RealPage has made this too easy for you, and now apartments are priced much more efficiently, and now renters can't find any mispriced apartments. That's the argument being made. I thought seeing Tennessee on that list was a little bit shocking. I mean, what landlords are doing today with setting apartment rents is no different than how they did it 30 years ago. Now it's just easier and they have to work less hard to do it, right? Because you pay a fee and the software provider does it for you, right? You outsource the old school work and now it just spits it out for you. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You know, the part that strikes me as incompatible is how Tennessee is involved. Why is Tennessee involved with anything to do with Merrick Garland? I don't know. Maybe it'll come out. If it does, I'll be happy to update you. All right, a few more for you here. Local developer converts Music Row homes into bars and a wellness retreat. Now this, I've never tried mushrooms, right? But if I did try mushrooms and start thinking about real estate developments, I think I might come up with an idea like this. I mean, I think this is as far out there as the mid-century warehouse with a greenhouse on top. And believe it or not, it's the same guy doing it. David Creed is restoring 3 houses, making 2 of them into new restaurant and bars, and the third into a wellness retreat. The wellness retreat is the part that's weird. The 2 bars, located 800 and 802 18th Avenue South, each will offer a new food and beverage tenant. The wellness retreat, called Rivium, will be located in a house at 803 18th Avenue South. The retreat is geared for artists who are looking for a short-term rental and will include a sound bath, cold plunge, sauna, and mediation room. I mean, it doesn't sound like, are you going to sleep there? I mean, this is a short-term rental where you're staying overnight, or are you just coming to hang out for a couple hours, get a sound bath, a cold plunge, a sauna, and meditate and be on your way? I don't know. It seems wacky to me when you understand the value of property in Music Row. To offer a wacky wellness retreat like this is a very, very bold idea. In 2014, Creed began buying land sites and creating development assemblages on Music Row, including a 15-story building located at 827 19th Avenue South, which is soon to be anchored by TikTok's local office called the Moore Building. Creed bought the 3 Music Row homes from local music producer Ernie Rowell in September of 2022. Quote, "It's hard to replicate this character in new construction, and it creates a major cool factor." So very uncommon use of property in Music Row, really bucking the trend, leaving the existing cottages, turning them into bars, restaurants, and a wacky wellness retreat. No more 15-story towers, right? Now we're going to operate wellness retreats for artists. Good luck with that. Next, another female country star partners with a downtown Nashville bar. None other than Miss Shania Twain is partnering with Lower Broadway bar Nashville Underground. Nashville Underground owners Joey and Gavin DeGraw are both singers themselves. The DeGraw brothers opened Nashville Underground at 105 Broadway in 2018. The multi-level 55,000 square foot bar, restaurant, and entertainment venue neighbors Acme Feed and Seed and Whiskey River Saloon. This news follows other celebrity Nashville bar openings and announcements this year, including Riley Green's Duck Blind, Morgan Wallen's This Bar in Tennessee Kitchen, Lainey Wilson's Bell Bottoms Up Bar, Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places Bar and Honky Tonk, Eric Church's Chiefs, and John Bon Jovi's JBJ's. If you aren't sure of who Shania Twain is, how dare you? Have some respect. We are talking about the top-selling female country artist of all time. Her Come On Over 1997 album sold over 4 million copies and has become the most sold album by a female artist in any genre. Shout out to Shania. Have some respect. All right, and now let's just freestyle on a little bit of politics, okay? So, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the political system in this country right now and really what's motivating people, what's not motivating people. And I thought, if you had to define the modern day Democrat Party, which is not the Democrat Party of old, the current modern day Democrat Party in one sentence, how would you do it? All right? And this is what I came up with. Maybe I'm off base, but this is what I came up with. Self-identified outcasts and their white knights, right? People that for whatever reason just see themselves as an outcast, think the Democrat Party is where outcasts go. And then you've got these other folks that aren't necessarily outcasts themselves, but they have this kind of empathy in them, this suicidal empathy, that they think they need to stand up for the outcasts. So you got the outcasts and the people that take great honor in standing up for outcasts, right? Which is just wacky, because for me, the only thing that matters about federal government is the policies. I don't, outcast, not outcast, black, white, Asian, I don't care about all that, man. The government causes more problems than it solves, okay? And whether or not you identify as an outcast or their white knight, it means nothing to me. All that matters is policy, right? And the policy in this country has just been terrible. We have this huge, bloated, costly, overregulated federal government that continues to cause problems for its citizens. And the Democrat Party doesn't even really have any policies. They don't have any real coherent policies. It's just like they kind of position themselves as this team that you should emotionally attach to, right? Or, I think there's a big contingent of people out there that are just kind of utopian thinkers, right? They're saying, oh, I'm going to be on team empathy here. And by being on team empathy, my life is all automatically going to be better in the future. And none of that makes any sense. All that matters is, what are the policy changes, right? What are we going to focus on? What problems are we going to try to solve with policy? And if you had to say, what are the coherent policies of the modern day Democrat Party? What are they? Okay, a celebration of killing babies with abortion, right? It's not that they should be available in difficult times, but there should still be shame attached, right? We're not pushing the idea that there's any shame attached to abortions, killing babies. We have to celebrate it now. All the debauchery that used to be shamed in the past, now the Democrat Party says we have to celebrate it, right? So there's this celebration of abortion. I'm not actually against abortion. This is one of those topics where I'm right down the middle on. I agree with Trump, as a matter of fact. This should just be a state's issue. Keep the federal government out of it. Let each state dictate the style of living they want, right? What's right for California is certainly not right for Tennessee. Let California have their own policies. Let Tennessee have their own policies. Problem solved. Keep the government out of abortion. So, it's really not a federal issue. So one of the few Democrat policy positions is actually an issue that has no business being in the federal government, right? The other one is, let's steal money from people who have made themselves successful by taxing them, right? That's another Democrat Party position, right? And those are the two that really stick out to me. Maybe I'm missing, beyond just saying, hey, Democrats want bigger, more costly government, and they think that's going to make life better, right? So you want a bigger, more costly government, you want to steal more money from people who made themselves successful, and you want the celebration of abortion. That's kind of how I see the Democrat policy positions, right? Maybe I'm wrong about this. I try to pay close attention. RFK is my guy. I've always liked RFK. Up until real recently was the only common sense Democrat I knew. And then, of course, they kicked him out, didn't want anything to do with him, so he's out. So I don't know a single common sense Democrat that I respect. I really don't. And that's my truth, right? Now let's talk about the Republican Party, right? The Republican Party, if I were to describe them in one sentence, right, I would say smaller and less costly government, less regulation, free speech, less theft via income taxes, freedom, and personal responsibility, right? Republicans don't expect the government to solve their problems. Republicans expect the government to cause their problems. So, as a Republican, one would want to shrink the size of the federal government, get back to the system that we were originally designed to have, which is make the state the most important entity of government in their citizens' lives, and then have this smaller, less substantial, overarching federal government when the states need to unite in a common way. We got so far away from that. Now the state is the small fry, and the federal government is making all the choices and forcing policy down the throat of the states. Generally speaking, I think we need to shrink the size of the federal government. We need to give more decision-making back to the states, and let's create 50 different styles of living in this country and let people sort themselves out. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for Democrats, liberals, progressives in red states to move to those states where they feel more comfortable. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for the Republicans, the conservatives in blue states to move to red states where the policies align more with what is important to them. I think we should sort each other out. I think we should embrace this idea of 50 states, 50 different styles of living. If you don't like the style of living in your state, we wish you well. Keep moving. Go to the place you want. We've got too many people, for example, in Tennessee, that love the lifestyle of Tennessee, a red state with red state policies, but then they want to force down the throat all of those failed policies from blue states. People in Tennessee don't take kindly to that. If you don't agree with the policies of your state, if you are a blue person in a red state, the solution is not to try to change the red state. The solution is for you to move to the blue state. And if we could just, as a society, accept this as true, I think we would all get along much, much better. I think we'd all be more happy once we've sorted each other out. So let me think if I have anything else to say on that topic. The other thing I was thinking about politics is, we're always talking about how we need to tax people that have made themselves successful. We need to tax them more. We don't tax them enough. Income tax is theft, right? We are going to, with our authority, power, and the U.S. military behind us, we are going to take a portion of what you earn and we're going to spend it the way we want. And people cheering on, yeah, the successful guys, it's fair. It's fair to steal more from them The successful guys steal it all, spend it on us. Let me tell you what a fair tax would be, right? The only way you can call a tax fair is if every able-bodied adult in this country, you turn 18 all the way up till death, right? Assuming you aren't mentally or physically impaired, right? Which is a small carve-out. If you're not physically or mentally impaired, you're an adult, you pay the exact same amount as everybody else, right? You're going to send me a check or a bill for $1,500 for my share. Everybody in this town paid $1,500 too. That is what fair means. We all pay the same amount. It's just because someone turned themselves into a success does not mean that you have the right to steal more of their money because you are envious of them, right? That is such ugly behavior. Success should be celebrated. And if you're someone that is not successful, that resents people that are, good luck to you, because that karma is going to hold you back for the rest of your life. Something about success is you want to see people be successful. Cheer them on, be inspired by them, and then go get it yourself. This idea that someone is successful, so now we're going to use the government to steal more of their money, is so gross and so unfair. You know, we've been lulled to sleep on this topic of income taxes. There is nothing fair about stealing more money from one person than you are another. The only tax that is fair is a tax where every able-bodied adult pays the same amount. And is that likely to ever happen? No, because that's too common sense, right? That's too common sense. We would definitely have to shrink the size of federal government substantially before that would even be possible. But this idea that you get to define what's fair about stealing other people's money is so gross. It is such bad karma, and that is going to be something you're going to have to live with. Shake off the ugliness. Be personally responsible for yourself. Go out and find the success you want for yourself and cheer on everybody else as they get theirs. This blaming other people for your position in life is loser mentality. Shake it off. And that's what all I've got for you today, guys. I appreciate you tuning into Free Speech Podcast with Bo Beach, presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. Check out our website at soldbybeechwood.com. Lots of good content there. Until next week, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you then.